My name is Isabelle and I started modeling in 2006, but I've been with Prestigious since 2009. And my first booking with Prestigious was a cover for Gadget magazine in Jakarta, Indonesia. And I still love that cover to this day, by the way. It's like still on my website. I'm really proud to have seen, and it's been such an honor to see how much this agency has grown and to know that they've taken a chance on me and like to just grow together. The thing about Image Powerhouse Prestigious Models is it is very unique brand of its own as an Asian American, Asian mixed representation agency. Like you don't see that anywhere else. So Image Powerhouse really is the first to do that. And so it's exciting for us to all be here together like that.
How is it like working with this agency?
Okay, so maybe you guys don't know or are familiar with Kim, but Kim is a superstar, okay? Kim, like she was part of this modeling scene before she started Prestigious Models. And so I still remember when I grew up in San Jose, like she's a big deal, right? I remember that, and to have this agency and everything. And so I think because she came from a modeling background, like because she came like in front of the camera first, she has a lot of empathy for her talent. And so I think that resonates with the rest of the team. And I think like I've been in the ebbs and flows of how this team has been built out over the years. And this is the most stable team I've worked with Image Powerhouse. And I think that's why everyone's like rocking and going.
I discovered that you made this self-tape versus actual film footage comparison video that I wanted to share with everyone. So I'm just going to play this. This was for last year, Halloween, for Halloween.
Please, let us go, okay? Please let my son go, okay? We don't want trouble.
Is anyone else here? It's a big house for just you.
Nobody's here. It's an old family house, and I'm selling it.
I don't want to hurt you, but if you move, I'll break the kid's arm.
Please let us go. Let my son go. We don't want any trouble.
Who else is here?
There's no one here. It's an old family home, and I'm just selling it.
I don't want to hurt anyone, but you move, I break the kid's arm. Understood?
What do you want?
I actually taped that in Manila. So I was like on vacation, and I bring my self-tape equipment everywhere I go. And I taped that, I think at like 1 a.m. to turn it in within the hour. And I was like tired. But actually I think in that instance it worked because that character woke up like out of like nowhere. So sometimes whatever your current state is, like if you're exhausted or if there's like dogs barking or whatever, those are gifts for your audition. Like don't let that stop you, right? Like I can tell, like I read a lot with people and I can tell sometimes people get distracted, but like whatever it is in your environment, just use that for yourself. You're tired, use it. You have coffee, use it. Like whatever is in your environment, just like use it. And I think usually I like to send in 2 takes if I can, but that one I was like, I'm just gonna send in this one. I'm happy with it.
Cool. Yeah. Speaking of things you could use, she also has another slate that looks interesting. So I'm just going to share this with everyone.
Hi there. My name is Isabelle. I'm 5'7". I'm based in Los Angeles, California, and I'm SAG-AFTRA. And also, I'd like to mention that I was on Sci-Fi Channel's Face Off for 6 seasons as a creature model. So I played monsters and zombies and witches, and I love to play all sorts of creepy things.
So what was the thought behind having your reflection next to you?
Okay, so clearly I'm in a hotel. Yeah, I love taping in hotels, by the way, because it's my good luck charm. I book a lot from hotel rooms for whatever reason. And this particular project, I had to play 2 characters. I had to play Madeline, who's the mom, but I also had to play her twin sister, who's like this feral creature. And so they said that you have to be comfortable with like prosthetics and things. And I had done 6 seasons of Sci-Fi Channel's Face Off, which if you're not familiar with that show, it's a reality competition show where artists compete to do special effects makeup. So I'm used to wearing like the crazy contacts and like wearing like prosthetics all day long. So I want to add that piece, but then because it's a dual role, I want to like, I was like, oh, there's a mirror. Let me just have fun. And like, I normally would never do this for my tape, but because it fit for, I want to showcase, I can play two characters. Here's me. And then here's like my evil twin sister or whatever. So yeah.
That's cool. That's really creative. And I also wanted to share with everyone this SFX video. So this is what you submit when a role requires like prosthetics.
Yes. So I throw that in there when I feel like it fits. Oh, zombie show. Even if my character isn't mentioned that she's going to die or become a zombie, I throw it in there. Or horror films, I throw it in there because I like to show people that I'm not shy to be ugly and I'm not shy to be scary things and like welcome it, you know?
Okay, so moving on, since you had a lot of projects last year, how have you been keeping track of all your auditions?
I have a spreadsheet. I have a Google spreadsheet that I use. I know people use Excel. The reason why I'm going to tell you to use on a Google spreadsheets is because it's also another way to share with, sometimes I'll share it with certain team members so they can also see what my data is like. I don't do that often and I will make it private afterwards. But like with my spreadsheet, I keep track of all my data. And I started in 2019. I wish I had done it earlier because then I could really see like how I've grown. But in 2019, I only had 11 auditions all year for TV film. And then in 2020, I had 15. And I remember thinking, this is not enough for me to book. So with my spreadsheet, I like to like have I put my casting directors that have called me in. I put like the role, the genre. Is it a feature film? Is it a student film? Is it a short film? Is it, I even put like the character names and the description. I've like catered it over the years to myself, like what makes sense for me and what information I care about. I know some people, they'll put columns of like how I felt about this audition. For me, I don't put that for myself because I don't really care about that. I care about it in the more business aspect. As actors, you are CEOs of your business. And so this is purely to understand like how I'm being perceived by casting directors and how am I being like called in, right? Because you're going to start seeing a pattern. Like some people are like, oh yeah, I keep track in my head. No, you're not. You have to like write it down, because you will see patterns. I highlight casting directors that have called me in again. And at the end of the year, you know how Spotify, they do like a wrap up, they do a wrap up of like, this is like your top 5 songs. These are the top 5 genres you like listening to. And this is the type of listener you are. So I do like a personal wrap up for myself where I'm like, who are the top 5 casting directors who are fans of my work? And what that means is that they've called me in like 8 times, right? And out of those casting directors, like what projects are they seeing? So I'll give you guys an example. Like Nancy Nayer called me in the most, and she called me in for Young the Restless 4 times. And I noticed that I'm like, okay, cool. Like that means she likes my work. Even though I haven't booked with her yet, I have an understanding of like how she sees me. And for Young the Restless in the beginning, it was like unnamed characters, right? Like media designer. And then I started to notice that as the year progressed, she was starting to trust me with longer pages and named characters. So that's very exciting for me. A lot of people see bookings as the wins, but there are other wins you have to give to yourself. Like if casting directors are calling you again, if you get a call back, if you're getting pinned, if you're starting to see that they're calling you in from like the first audition, they called you in for receptionist, and now they're calling you in for like Maddie. That's a win. From 2019 to 2020, I thought I got to change this. So by seeing like, I only got called in 11 times, 15 times. The next year, I got called in 152 times. Huge difference, right? Because then I got very aggressive with like everything. You can't just wait for your team and the agency to like get you auditions. You need to be proactive about like getting yourself out there as well. And so like, and I'm very particular about how I submit more myself as well. I look at all the teams. So like in the breakdowns, right, I'll say like writer, producer, director, casting director. If you notice that like it's the same person, Joe Schmo, for like writer, director, producer, then you can tell that that's a small project. But if you notice that certain casting directors are like attached to it, some of those casting directors book bigger jobs. It's just another way for you to get seen. Every time I do an audition, I see that as networking. And I learned this because I did this short film in Atlanta. It didn't pay. It was a SAG. It was like this. I did this in the summer of 2021. It was like non-paid. It was a SAG-AFTRA project, small short film. I really cared about what that film was about. And that director, he loved my work so much. And he's like, hey, do you think I can show your self-tape in my class? Because he's like a film professor at UGA. So I was like, okay, sure. But he also passed that tape to one of his like best friends, who's also a filmmaker. He's like, oh my God, I hope you get to work with him someday. That director, like 4 months later, booked me on a Lifetime TV One film. And he mentioned my self-tape from that short film from the summer. So you never know like who's watching your stuff every time you send it out. And then I also did a separate like document where at the end of the year, I wrote like, I copied and pasted all of my characters and my character descriptions from all my bookings, right? The things I got booked for. And I would highlight adjectives and occupations that stood out to me. And I noticed that further confirmed where I'm being seen. So I would be like executive, sassy, bossy, posh, snobby, whatever. I'm like, and don't take it personally ever when you're getting called in for something older or younger or something like mean. Like all that stuff is good data for you to have, because now you know what type you're the strongest in. And also, if maybe that's the type that you don't want, now you know what you need to work on. So I get called and booked a lot for reporter stuff, which makes sense because I've done a lot of real reporting, and I was a red carpet host for like fashion TV Vietnam. So I've done a lot of that actual real work. So that's why I probably got booked for that. But I looked at my data, right? And I went back to my spreadsheet, and it was this particular office that had called me in 3 times this in 2022. And the 3 roles that they called me in for was news reporter, newscaster, news anchor. I saw a pattern. This casting director loves to call me in for these roles. I was like, hey, these are the 3 things that they called me in this year. I'd like to be able to aim for something like juicier, right? So the next day they got me an 8-page audition for a show that's in its 5th season. Very big show. I had to sign an NDA and everything. And I love this audition. I was like, whether I book it or not, I just like loved it. In fact, it was written for a guy. I went to my spreadsheet, being able to see the pattern. I was able to like take control of my career's narrative, right? Instead of just sitting and be like, okay, cool, I'll just do news reporter for the rest of my life with this casting office. No, I wanted them to see me for other things, and they did. And it got me farther. So I'm excited that they've started to call me in for other named characters.
Have you seen any differences, maybe number-wise? Have you seen any growth?
Yeah, so I'm always about quantifying everything. So my goal in 2021 was to reach a certain ratio. So after my 2021 data, I noticed that I was booking 1 out of every 16 jobs. That was my ratio. So for every 16 auditions, I booked 1. So I told myself, I want to be able to get a better ratio in 2022. And I did. I booked 1 out of every 14 auditions. And the only reason why I know that is because I kept track with my data. I kept track with my numbers. And in order to come up with a ratio, you have to base that off of your previous numbers.
So since you mentioned you have representation in Atlanta, what's it like having a different market?
So the reason why I've been able to work in Atlanta is I actually moved to Atlanta in 2021. And so I spent a lot of time out there and getting to know everyone. I have a place out there. I went to Georgia because, first of all, Georgia, if you guys are not familiar, they film the most movies in Georgia. They do. And they film all the Marvel stuff in Georgia. It is and as someone mentioned here, yes, it is it's a right to work state. So there's also pros and cons that come with that. I'm union, so I don't do non-union. But in Georgia, when you're in a right to work state, what that means is you don't have to join the union. However, here's what I've also realized. LA is king. When I look through my spreadsheet, the majority of my auditions still come from LA. Like, not by a little, but by still an astronomical number.
So lastly, do you have any tips for beginner actors who need credits? So I know a lot of people here especially are looking for small projects as well to get those credits and get some material for their reel, but we always talk about like having quality credits, whether that's going to be leading to more connections or a lot of speaking lines. So what do you think about that?
So this acting career, first of all, don't put a deadline on it. Okay. Like, I think people are like, if I don't make it in a year, then I'm done. No. It's the long journey. On average, it takes people 10 years to like finally get things rolling. I found that to be true for myself as well. Also, people will mention student films, and I would lead with a little bit of caution that not all student films are the same. They're not all made equal. I will say, if you can, on Actors Access, look for USC 546 student films from that particular class. 546 is a very famous USC class that so hundreds and hundreds of film students from USC, which is obviously one of the best film schools out there, right? They'll pitch their like film ideas to the professors. And all these professors, by the way, I think the head professor, he was the showrunner on The Twilight Zone. But you also have like Oscar winners on this like team, right? And what they'll do is they have to pitch their ideas. And only 3 film projects are approved by the professors. And then everybody else has to like join up as their crew, right? And so they find their cast on Actors Access. And these films, a lot of them will go on to like, there have been like Oscar winners from this class. I mean, like from their short film. Their short film will get submitted to certain film festivals and go on to win Oscars for like their short film or whatever. Do your research when you submit to student films, and you're going to get amazing footage, and you're going to get it right away.
Just to recap a little bit, Isabelle talked about adding your own unique touch to your self-tapes, such as by showing that you're not scared or any like previous examples of the prosthetics. For audition tracking, she used spreadsheets. However, this is going to be up to your style, so you don't necessarily have to follow the template. You can modify, of course, to your own liking. But for her, what worked was highlighting the adjectives, finding out what kind of characters you're often seen as, and connecting the dots with the casting directors so that you know who calls in you the most. She also calculated some audition numbers every year and found a ratio which will help you set a measurable goal. And when a goal is measurable, it's much easier to work towards it as well. About different markets, she mentioned about, yes, everyone wants to increase the number of auditions, but there are some risks to it and responsibilities. And at the end of the day, LA gets the most auditions. So it's also up to you with the timing on going into a different market. And yeah, just now we talked about how student films can be supervised by Oscar-winning instructors, and they can be entered into big festivals as well. So you should definitely keep an eye on ESC student films and other student films that have like those meaningful connections.